In this video, we will be diving into major players or major roles within the home buying transaction. Now, this is one of those things where we will dive into who they are and what they do during the transaction. My name is William Singh. I'm a local real estate agent here in Portland, Oregon. So if you have any questions whatsoever, feel free to reach out and also leave a comment down below. If you find any of this content helpful, it'd be wonderful if you could like and subscribe. It would mean a lot to me. Now let's dive right into this content. One of the first major players in this for you will most likely be the real estate agent. This is one of those things where they do a variety of different things. However, their main role is to guide you through the home buying process. Think of them as the project manager of your home buying process. They will do a large variety of things from scheduling tours, creating comps and the offer strategy, negotiating deals, scheduling inspections, coordinating with contractors if need be, and then also directing you to any other resources, that including tax or legal assistance if need be. So things that you should be looking at, those are the things that a real estate agent will be able to help you out with. Note that you should be asking as many questions as possible. This is going to be a huge emotional and financial venture. So making sure that you have all of the questions you want answered, and just know that there really are no dumb questions, because again, this is why you hire professionals to help you through this process. So if you have any questions whatsoever, feel free to reach out to them. Now, one of the benefits that I personally provide is the education part. To me, this is one of those things where I create these videos and create a lot of different types of content to help educate you through this process. And I try to also use modern technology to help guide you through this as well. So just some things to kind of keep in mind. And then on top of that, I also have a very wide breadth of experience being a real estate investor, also managing my own properties, and also having a little bit of background in construction. So just one of those things where I have kind of done quite a bit and can offer that experience and teach others with that in mind. Now let's dive into the second biggest role, or another big role, which is going to be the lender. So a lender is going to be an individual or a company that is able to provide you a loan or a mortgage loan for what you're looking at. Now, what they do is they will be able to guide you through the mortgage process or pre-approval process as well, and see kind of how much you're able to qualify for, and seeing what other loan programs might be a good fit for you. Once you get under contract, they'll be asking for a lot of documents and things of that nature to essentially make sure that you can buy that home. Now, this is one of those things where it is very critical to have a lender that is able to communicate with you and communicate with the agent effectively, because there are potential for, if you use maybe bigger banks where they can't communicate quite as well, they have a fantastic rate, that you may have that deal still fall through. Now, this can cost you money, and if you have any questions about the potential downsides of using a bigger bank, feel free to take a look at a video that I did of why not to use bigger banks. I'll make sure to leave a description down below. But with that, they will kind of help you throughout the entire transaction and provide the necessary documents for you to understand what you're kind of getting into, see what the amortization is, what your monthly payment will be. And as you move through the transaction, their numbers will get clearer and clearer. So by the time you're closing and doing all the final signing documents, you'll know exactly what your mortgage payment will be. You'll know what your taxes will be, and understand a little bit more about what that is. Now, the third role is going to be the escrow officer or title company. Now, who is the title company or escrow officer? This is an interchangeable word, so just kind of keep that in mind. And who they are is someone who is a neutral third party within the transaction. So, for example, with a buyer and seller, you want to have a neutral third party that is basically just going everything by the contract and making sure that there's neutrality within this transaction. Now, they'll help with additional things in terms of getting the closing date and also providing title insurance and things of that nature. So that's kind of the major role with them. You'll be depositing earnest money with them within usually 3 business days of the transaction being started. So once you have mutual acceptance, you usually have about 3 business days to get that earnest money to them. So these are kind of the major things that they do, and they'll also help with the transaction of funds and be that neutral third party to distribute funds to their respective parties and make sure all the numbers are balanced. So they are a crucial part in making sure that this transaction goes smoothly and there's some sort of neutrality within the transaction as well. Home inspectors are another huge part of a purchase when you are buying a home. Now, think of this as a primary care doctor who's going through very meticulously and seeing what the potential issues are with that home. This is one of those things where they are able to go through the home and say, hey, by the way, you should go see this specialist about this thing. So for example, a inspector might be able to see, hey, this foundation may have some potential issues. Please reach out to a foundations contractor to see further details or see what a potential issue would be. So this is one of those things that as a real estate agent, we'll be able to provide you. I have great connections with a wonderful inspector who was very thorough, which is something that you do want. And with that, they are going to help you understand what you're getting into. This is when usually you'll be getting these inspectors in within the inspection period and you're wanting to do it early on. So that way, if there's any referrals, let's say that, hey, we need to get a siding contractor out here, or we need to get a foundations contractor out here. At that point, that's when you want to be able to get them in sooner rather than later. So that way you can get all the estimates and things of that nature for the inspection period to know what you're getting into. And your agent can kind of guide you through what's a big deal, what's not a big deal, what things you should be focusing on, and what things you should be negotiating for. So with that, we'll dive into another big player in this, which is going to be the appraiser. Now, appraisers are someone you really don't have a lot of contact with as a buyer or a seller. This is because usually they're coming in as a neutral third party and assessing the value of the home. Now, the reason why you have this is so that way banks can understand what the value of the home is, so that way they're not loaning out too much money. It's one of those things where if for whatever reason you have to default, they want to make sure that they get their money back on that. So something to kind of keep in mind that during this process, usually it's done after the inspection period, or it's scheduled after the inspection period, because when you are going through this process, the lender will order that appraisal. And once that appraiser gets there, you will then have to pay for them to actually do the appraisal. Now, this is one of those things where the reason why we want to schedule it after the inspection period is so that way if there's anything that's majorly wrong, you don't have to spend that extra money, because if you do pay for the appraiser, then that is money that could be potentially lost if you decide to pull out of that deal. So just something to kind of keep in mind. Now, another player in this transaction is going to be an insurance agent. I know this is something that usually is a little bit newer for a lot of first-time home buyers because they just don't really think about insurance, but insurance is actually required for buying a home. It's part of the PITI, which is principal, interest, taxes, and insurance. This is one of those things that you will need to have in order to close with a loan. Now, with that, the insurance agent is someone who will be able to kind of guide and show you, hey, these are the plans we offer. This is what we have. You could potentially even wrap it in with other cars or other types of insurance as well. So that way you might be able to get a bundle deal, things of that nature. This is something to just kind of keep in mind, that I do have some references that you can reach out to if you do want to kind of move that insurance to a different broker or a different company, and something where you will need to make this decision during the transaction. So if you wanted to line up that person beforehand or just have a better understanding, that is something that you can do. Now, until you get the actual property address and kind of go through that process, that's when you'll know a little bit more of how much the insurance will cost for the house. So things to kind of keep in mind. And there are going to be other people that are in this transaction that might be a little bit of a smaller role, or maybe a little bit of a different role. One of these roles might be a transaction coordinator. This might be on both the buyers and sellers side, where I personally have a transaction coordinator that helps get all the paperwork through the process and is helping me dot all the I's and cross all those T's. So just something to know that that's something that will help you go through the process and make things a little bit more smooth. Some other potential parties within this transaction might also be either home warranties, where you're wanting to get a home warranty for your house, so that way it kind of covers any mechanical issues that might pop up down the line, or contractors. This is again one of those things that will play a role in a transaction and is something to kind of keep in mind when you are looking at buying a house, that this is another party that will be influencing or have some part in the buying process. Now, I went over a lot of the parties that are both major and sometimes more minor parties within the transaction, but there are going to be potentially more parties that kind of come into this scenario when you are buying a house. So if you have any other questions about this, feel free to leave down a comment down below. And if you found any of this content helpful, it'd be great if you could hit that like button and subscribe. And with that, thanks so much for watching.